Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, I want to talk about energy healing. I am actually really surprised I haven't talked about energy healing much on this podcast, where it was kind of like the foundation. Oh, no. Okay, I take it back. I have kind of weaved it throughout my different episodes, kind of talking about how I've used energy healing for my own healing, but I haven't really taken a moment to talk about energy healing, like how it works and who it's for. So that is what I'm going to do today. I want to demystify energy healing a little bit because this is actually something that's been around for a long time, for thousands of years. Like if you do a quick search and ask like how far does energy healing date back? I mean, they were doing forms of energy healing in ancient Egypt, in ancient Greece, obviously East Asian cultures, in India, I mean, African cultures, Native American cultures, like the list goes on and on and on. Basically, for thousands of years, all of these different cultures have had their own versions of energy healing or energy medicine. And when I say their own versions, I mean that they all had similar beliefs and they all worked with intention. But the modalities and the practices that were paired with that intention, like how the energy healing was specifically conducted, differed across cultures. But for example, they all believed in this life force energy that animates the body. In cultures like in India or in like yogic traditions, that is referred to as prana. You may have heard like the term pranayama if you have taken yoga classes or studied yoga. You may have heard of qi in like traditional Chinese medicine. It's the same thing. It translates to the same thing. It's this life force energy. And then Reiki, which we'll be talking a little bit about, is Japanese and it translates to universal life force energy. Ki being synonymous with chi and prana. And then ancient Egypt, ancient Greek, they all had their own word for this life force energy. So this concept is not new. It is thousands of years old. And like I said, they all worked with intention. So the belief that your intention paired with these practices could lead to healing, or they believed that disease or illness in the body often originated from these imbalances in your energy body. Some energy healing practices that you may be aware of are acupuncture, yoga, qigong, ayurveda. Like I think of like acupuncture and yoga specifically. These are very mainstream and people may not even be aware that these are actually energy healing or energy medicine practices. Like acupuncture specifically, the needles are placed in specific places within the body in order to balance the energy body. In yoga, we often think of this as like an exercise, a form of movement, which it is, and it does have so many benefits on the body, like the physical body, but this is also a form of energy healing. That's why you often hear in yoga, whether you're taking classes, whatever it may be, that specific poses are tied to the different chakras and how specific poses may be serving a specific purpose. Maybe you hear of like heart openers. Yoga is meant to be a practice that balances the energy in your body. So yes, this is all not new. Like I said, it dates back thousands of years. And in this episode, I kind of want to dive more into the energy healing that I do specifically, which is channeling life force energy through your hands. And the closest thing similar to what I do is Reiki. So I was actually trained in Reiki, Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. I think when most people talk about energy healing in our modern age, they are most often referring to Reiki, or they kind of like go hand in hand together. That is like the most mainstream form of energy healing. And Reiki was birthed in Japan. And how it works is basically a energy healing practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, will learn how to ground themselves, open their crown chakra, and then call in universal life force energy, You can say like I'm calling in Reiki energy. Reiki literally translates to universal life force energy, and you channel it. And so it enters in through your crown as a practitioner, and it moves down through your channel and to your hands, and then you use your hands for healing. So the energy is being channeled through your hands. So you're working with your hands, and what makes it sort of Reiki is the use of these Japanese symbols. So you're taught specific Japanese symbols for clearing, for balancing, for distance Reiki, and a practitioner will be taught to sort of draw these symbols in the air as they are working. So like let's say I'm like working above a body and I'm, at the throat chakra and I need to clear it, then I might draw a symbol specifically used for clearing. You can draw it, you can imagine this symbol in your mind. There's different ways to work with these symbols. But basically, you are using these symbols to do specific things within the energy body, such as clearing or balancing. So I have talked a little bit about how I am an energy healer. I do practice energy work, but how I don't use Reiki, although I was formally trained in Reiki. And what I mean by this is when I do energy healing work, my hands are moving entirely on their own. And I believe that that is a gift that I possess. I know from training and going through these trainings with other people studying to learn Reiki that not everyone is having that same experience. And so when my hands are moving, at this point, it's been a few years since I've been practicing, and now they move a little bit more intuitively. But if I were just to leave them alone, they would still continue to move, and it would just be a little bit slower than me moving them intuitively now. But from the very beginning, my hands have never used those symbols, although I was taught those symbols. And I remember one time, I think it was in my Reiki 2 training, where I was doing energy work on someone, just practicing on someone in my class, and I specifically thought to myself, like, why am I not using the Reiki symbols? Like, why are my hands doing all of these movements and I'm not using the Reiki symbols? And I immediately heard, because that's not your lineage. So I think that for me, learning Reiki was really helpful. It provided a foundation, like a sort of structure to do this work. I learned a lot about how to ground myself properly. I learned about the chakra system. I learned, there were a lot of things that I learned in my Reiki classes that were really helpful. And I was working with my Reiki master, who I had known for years and who had helped me with healing. And so she was someone that I very much trust, and that provided sort of a safe space for me to understand and practice my own gifts. But yes, so that is what I mean by I do not use the Reiki symbols, or I believe I do energy healing work, but it is not Reiki, and it is specifically because I do not use the symbols. So what is my lineage then? That's a great question. I don't fully understand the extent of that. Before I even discovered that I was an energy healer, if you have listened to like my very first episode of this podcast where I told that story, before I discovered I was an energy healer, I had been told that I was a healer, that I come from a long lineage of healers, and that it was on my dad's side of the family. My dad is Mexican. He has ancestors from Spain. And so I imagine that there's a lot of like Native American influence in that lineage. And I have also been told that the work I do is more shamanic in nature, and that kind of like ties into my Native American ancestry. I'm hesitant to say Native American ancestry because it is like Mexican ancestry, but like you get it, like who was in Mexico thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago or whatever it may be. So that is a little bit about Reiki itself. Now I want to share just how energy healing works in general, because I don't think I've taken some time to talk about like the technical aspect of this work. So when I sit down to do energy healing work, the first thing that I do is I will clear my space, clear my room, and then I will typically call in my higher self and my guides, who I ask for help in protecting the space, protecting me, and assisting with the energy healing process. And then what I will do is sit, close my eyes, and ground myself. And so for that, I envision tree roots, like big oak tree roots, extending from the base of my spine and my legs, and just like rooting me into the center of the earth. And then I will open my crown chakra, and I do that through a visualization. And from there, I will call in the energy. And then from there, for me, what I experience is typically my hands will start moving. It feels like magnets, kind of like pulling my hands. And if I have someone in front of me, if I'm doing this in person, my hands will typically scan the body. I thought this was really interesting too, because when I did my Reiki classes, I was not taught to scan the body. It's just something that, as my hands were moving on their own, they just started to scan the body. And then I later on learned that that is a practice that people do in energy healing. They scan the body first. So that was kind of like a confirmation for me. I don't even know what it was confirming, that like whatever my hands were doing, whatever they were guiding me to do, it felt correct. So if someone's working in front of me, then my hands will sort of move along the body and scan, and then it will feel like a magnet pulling my hand down to drop in specific places. So in that way, my hands will sort of guide me to where someone needs healing. I may also not be using the correct language. Like I specifically refer to this as like my hands guiding me, because they are the ones moving and I'm sort of the witness to what's taking place. But it could also be the energy moving my hands. It could be my soul, my higher self working through me. I kind of think it's like a little bit of everything. So that is how that's done in person. And if I am working remotely, which is the majority of the work that I do distance healing. It is the same exact process, but when my hands are moving, they will either work out in front of me or they will use my body as proxy, which is really helpful when they use my body as proxy because, as I mentioned, my hands are moving. I don't have a lot of conscious awareness of what is taking place. After years of practice, I've learned when my hands are doing specific things, it means specific things, but there are a lot of things that they're doing that I don't have a conscious awareness of. And so when I'm using my body as proxy, then that can at least give me some information as to like where I'm working on someone's energy body, maybe like what chakras I'm specifically working on or focused on. And that can be helpful information to relay to the person or the client that I'm working on. That is how from a technical perspective, that is how energy work is done. In terms of remote or distance Reiki, how this works, and this was like fascinating to me when I first discovered this or when I was first taught this. This works because energy is not bound by time or space, which means that I can set the intention to do energy work on someone on the other side of the world because energy is not bound by space, and it will be the same level of effectiveness as if they were 20 miles away, as if they were here in front of me. Energy is not bound by space, and energy is not bound by time. So that means that I can send energy healing to someone in the future or a past version of themselves. So that is how a lot of like inner child work takes place. And in terms of sending it in the future, one of the examples that I was given from my Reiki master was like, for example, let's say someone is going to be undergoing a surgery, scheduled for, I don't know, a month out, 2 weeks out, and you want to sit here today and send healing to them 1 month in the future, then that can also be done because energy is not bound by time. So that is how it works remotely. I will just set the intention to connect with a specific person's energy field, obviously having permission beforehand, and that is how it works. So for me, the really cool thing about learning energy healing and learning how this all comes together is the piece about intention. Like when we talk about like your intention is powerful when you move through the world, Your intention is powerful, and energy healing, whether we're talking about Reiki or any of these other modalities, it is intention at the core, at the foundation of this work. So your intention is powerful. Keep that in mind. If I can conduct energy work on someone on the other half of the world through intention, I hope that that is like the one thing that you take away. Your intention is so, so powerful. Okay, let's talk about who it's for. Who is energy work for? Who could this benefit? You know what? I spent a lot of time trying to put this piece of this podcast together, and then I sat in meditation and I was like, am I missing anything? Like, who is this for? And me launching my own energy healing business, I've been trying to narrow in and focus in on my audience and like who is my potential client. And again, asking the question, who is this for? And when I was asking who is this for, I was pairing it with like, what is the scope of its capabilities? Like, what can energy healing do? And I'm going to be completely honest when I say I have still struggled to narrow in on who it's for and what it can do. And not for like, I was gonna say not for like a lack of experience, but I mean, I guess kind of. I think that I will continue to get more information the more that I practice this, the more that I work on clients. Well, what I can say for now is that I will have my beliefs about what energy healing work can do and who it's for. And then I have another session, and the feedback I receive afterwards just blows my mind. So it's like I keep trying to like define it, and then the more that I do that, the more that I realize that this is not something that can be neatly defined. When you are working with universal life force energy, how can you put a limit on that? How can you put a limit on its capabilities? And so I have been personally stunned to see the level of healing that can take place in just one session. So I'm going to give you some things to work with in terms of like who it could be for, but I just want to preface that so that you have an understanding that like, you know, this list is not comprehensive. Like, I think that the more that I do this work, the more I'm going to continue to understand different ways that this energy work can provide healing and what that could potentially look like. So in my opinion, just like a starting point, who this might be beneficial for starters, someone who is feeling out of alignment, either physically or mentally. So we can think about like emotional heaviness. We can think about someone feeling anxious. We can think about someone feeling stuck or blocked. We can think about on a physical level, like someone experiencing pain. So there's feeling out of alignment. And then I believe on a spiritual level, I think anyone on like a personal healing journey or anyone looking to further develop their own intuition, this work can be helpful, because I think both personal healing and intuition are tied to the chakra system. And I mean, this is how I've used energy healing for the most part throughout my journey. I haven't been someone experiencing a ton of misalignment mentally or physically, so I've used it more for healing old wounds or past traumas or ancestral wounds, or really working to balance my own energy body and my chakra system and clearing of my channel. So it's been helpful to, you know, in the beginning, work with my Reiki master to understand which parts of my chakra system or energy body were out of balance. And then when I learned how to do this work, you know, seeing where my hands work helped me to understand where attention was needed within my own energy body. So this is what I'm saying. There can be a lot here. So I would say if you're someone who's like, I'm interested in energy healing, but I don't really know if it's right for me or right for me at this time, my recommendation would be follow your intuition, just like my recommendation for this entire podcast. That is how I have approached energy healing. I mean, now that I do energy work, I kind of like do it on myself more regularly. But when I was debating whether or not to go see a healer, before I discovered how to do energy work myself, I let my intuition guide me. So I remember the very, very, very first time that I booked a Reiki session, and I didn't really understand what it was, how it worked. I was kind of like, okay, it had distance Reiki over Zoom, like not really comprehending, but I was open to it. And the reason why I even booked that session in the first place is because I kept hearing about it everywhere. It just kept popping up randomly. And then I would just like find myself thinking about it. And then I remember that final straw was that I saw it posted in a forum at my workplace. And I was like, oh my God, it's even at work. And so then I like looked up Reiki on Yelp and I found my Reiki master and I booked a session. So for me, it was like, I feel like my intuition guided me there by like I was seeing it everywhere. And I feel like even now, as I've been on my journey, the times when I know it's time to book a session is if there's like something that I keep thinking about that I'm like, it keeps like kind of like popping up in my head, like, oh, you should book a session. Oh, you should book a session. You should book a session. So that's kind of like how I've experienced intuition. But, sometimes I have worked with a client who's like, I just have this intuitive knowing that the root of what I'm experiencing is energetic. And she was right. So, I would say, trust your intuition. Is this something that keeps popping up? Do you keep thinking about it, or does it keep popping up in your reality? And maybe that is your intuition trying to signal to you that this could be something that is beneficial to whatever you're experiencing. Or maybe you just have an intuitive knowing that the root of what you're experiencing could be energetic. Or maybe you just have a curiosity, and that's okay too. I think that for me in that first session, there were things that I was experiencing. I was feeling out of alignment more mentally, but me myself, I kind of just like have a curiosity around a lot of these healing modalities. And I was just talking to a friend about this over the weekend, but like these kind of things are like fun for me. Like I like to go and like work on my triggers. That's I don't know, that's the Scorpio moon in me. I don't know. I just like these are the kind of things that I find fun. So I hope that that was like maybe helpful in terms of helping you understand like maybe a starting point of like if this could be beneficial for you. Okay, and then why it may be supportive or like how it works. I think that there are a multitude of things. One big one, in my opinion, is the ability to clear energy when we're doing energy work. And I know that that type of energy healing work that I do, like we go deep in the deep cleaning and the cleansing, in releasing of energy. I'm doing it in almost every single session. I would venture to say maybe 100% of the sessions I do, I'm usually clearing energy at least a little bit, even if that's not the main focus. And why would we need to clear our energy, right? Well, if you're someone who's like energetically sensitive, like me, someone who's more empathic, you could be just like taking on other people's stuff without even realizing it. And therefore, you may be someone holding a lot of energy for other people. And so that can be good to sort of release that energy that you're holding and sort of get back to your own energy. I have also seen and experienced for myself sort of the clearing or the releasing of stored emotions. So there have been times where I've done energy work on myself where I will be in the session and I will start feeling like rage or sadness. And I have done energy work for other people and I have helped them release similarly sadness, fear, anxiety, anger. And as an energy healing practitioner, I'm aware of this release because I'm feeling those emotions as I'm clearing. And so that helps me understand what I'm clearing for whoever I am supporting. So emotions, and then there's just like negative energy that we could be storing in our energy bodies. And this can be just like from a multitude of things. I mean, if you think about if you're someone like scrolling TikTok constantly, if you're scrolling, I don't know, just the internet constantly, like you're picking up on a lot of energy. If you're watching the news, like that can all be sources of just like negative energy that you may be picking up and absorbing. And if you are storing a lot of negative energy, like what what can that cause? Like, what does that do? Well, if we go back to these like ancient traditions, a lot of the belief was that disease or illness could be a manifestation of imbalances in the energy body, of negative energy being needing to be cleared. In my own experience, when I'm storing a lot of negative energy, what that has manifested as like um, negative self talk, that has manifested as depression, anxiety. So there can be a lot of different things that we can experience as a manifestation of stored energy in our bodies. I'll mention again the chakra system specifically and how that can impact the way that we are experiencing the world. I've talked a lot about my throat chakra, how that was severely blocked from a multitude of things. And now that I've unblocked it, like I experience life differently. So that has been really, really important, deep inner work that I have done. And I've used energy work to clear a lot of that. Of course, is conjunction the right word? Like paired with a lot of the changes that I was making in my life in the physical, like the way that I was showing up, speaking my truth on the podcast, on TikTok, in my relationships, just like the effective communication. So, working to balance the chakra system can also lead to deeper levels of healing. There's someone who I did a session on recently who I was cutting energy cords at their throat chakra. And to be honest, I didn't know why it was taking place in the moment as it was happening. We had been setting the intention to work through anxiety. And the feedback afterwards, and she gave me permission to share this testimonial, was that she experienced less social anxiety. So she found herself just sort of like speaking more openly after that session. So there are different ways that we can work with the chakra system that can help improve someone's experience. Lastly, I want to take a minute to talk about why people may have varied experiences with energy healing. You can read someone's feedback or read reviews, and someone's like, I experienced nothing, and someone is like, I had a life-changing experience. So like, why the variation, and why may this be something very difficult to quantify? Number one, energy healing is not meant to be used for bypassing. Like, you may need to address something in the physical in your life. And I kind of talked about how, like with my throat chakra, it was a combination of both. It was the energy work and it was also the real life action that I was taking that led to healing. So an example of this is like, maybe someone is experiencing a ton of anxiety on a daily basis and it feels debilitating. And maybe that same person is in a very toxic relationship. So I could potentially do energy work to support the anxiety, but it may not be effective if you continue to choose to stay in that toxic relationship. That anxiety may be signaling to you that you need to leave, that this relationship is not serving you, that it doesn't make you feel safe, a number of different things. So it's not meant for bypassing. Oftentimes, not every single time, but a lot of times when we're talking about like some of the really deep inner work, there is a combination of energy healing with real life action that takes place. The other reason why people may have varied experiences is when you are choosing a healer to work with, I think that there can be a wide range of skill sets. So when we're talking about like Reiki specifically, you can go online and get certified as a Reiki master in like a day. I just think that the resources out there in terms of training are very varied, and that is why people may have different experiences when they are receiving energy healing. The one thing that I will caution you is you also want to work with healers who are either healed or doing their own healing work simultaneously. So there's this phrase of like the unhealed healer. I think that, when you learn to do energy work and you see the good it can bring. Sometimes we want to just like jump in and like start helping everybody, and I understand that. But as a healer, there is a lot of work that you need to do to clear your channel and regulate your own nervous system, and that can help someone else to have a better experience, like a potential client to have a better experience if you've done your healing work first. So I've talked about on this podcast how I was like just letting my intuition guide me. And after I, discovered I was an energy healer and I got trained in Reiki and all of these things, I started practicing on family and friends. And I was kind of wondering, like, why don't I feel this pull to do this professionally? And it was because my intuition was first guiding me on my own healing journey, which I spent a little over a year focused on, and that work was regulating my nervous system and clearing my own channel. And once I got confirmation that I had unblocked my throat chakra, cleared my own channel, then I got the intuitive message, okay, now it's time to start healing. Now it's time to start doing this work. I had to make sure that I was not going to be working from a place of depletion and not projecting any of my own stuff by doing that healing work first. So when you are trying to figure out, okay, like which healer to work with, and I've experienced this myself, is let your intuition guide you. Again, like, do I need energy healing? Let your intuition guide you. Okay, I want energy healing. Which healer should I work with? Let your intuition guide you. Like, see who you resonate with. And I think that is the best way to go about it. I have, for the most part, every healer that I've worked with, I have let my intuition guide me there. There was one person who I had a reading with who was recommended to me by like 3 different friends who were all like, she's amazing. And I quickly found that I just didn't resonate with, I'll say, not necessarily like what she was sharing, but like how she was delivering the information. It just didn't quite resonate with me. And I didn't walk away from that session feeling like I had necessarily gained anything. So I personally am of the belief that you should follow and trust in your intuition and let that guide you to healers to work with. So that was a lot of information. I hope this was helpful, just learning a little bit about the history, how this works from a technical perspective, and whether or not this could be of benefit for you. And I would be remiss to end this episode without letting you know that I am also open for energy healing sessions. I just launched my business last month now. Like, actually, it was like 2 weeks ago. Maybe 3 weeks ago at this point. I received the confirmation it was time to start doing this work. It was time to start using my gifts and sharing these gifts with the world. And I'm so excited to do that. And so you can feel free to book a session with me. I'll say, if I resonated with you, you can feel free to book a session with me at the link below. Anyways, thank you so much for taking some time to listen, and I will see you all again in the next episode. Oh, last thing, if you have any further questions about this, feel free to like leave a comment or like send me a message, and I'd be happy to answer, because again, I know this topic cannot be neatly defined. So if you have some further questions, I'm happy to answer those. Okay, thank you everybody. Bye.